In August 1943, the residents of Slapton and the surrounding villages had no idea that their lives were about to change, in some cases forever. As nearly 3,000 miles away in Quebec, Winston Churchill, President Roosevelt and the Canadian Prime Minister Mackenzie King were meeting to discuss a sprawling plan to prepare for a second front against Germany in France, codenamed Operation Overlord. But only 3 months later, on the 16th of November 1943, Devon County Council were notified by the War Office that the land bounded by Blackawton, East Allington, Torcross and Blackpool Sands was to be requisitioned by the Admiralty, and all of the residents evacuated. Meetings were set up between local government and voluntary organisations, and the clergy were nominated to mediate between the affected villagers and farmers. They were given just 6 weeks to clear 30,000 acres of land across 6 parishes. Nearly 3,000 people were to be evacuated from 180 farms and 8 villages, taking with them all movable possessions, including furniture, farm machinery, livestock and crops, all before the 20th of December deadline. One of the 3,000 people affected was 11-year-old Pam Wills, who lived just along the coast over there at Street. Pam still lives in the same house today, and we were lucky enough to speak to her.
I mean, the first thing we knew about it was when my parents got a letter to say that we had to leave within 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
And we had to find ourselves somewhere to live. I mean, we thought it was great going somewhere else. We thought it was a holiday, I think. Went down to Beeson, went to stay with an aunt and cousin down there on the farm. And that was right on the edge of the evacuated area. Mm-hmm. And we had two bedrooms. My sister and myself shared one room, and my parents had another room. Obviously we shared the bathroom and shared the kitchen. And my aunt gave my mother a corner in the kitchen where she could put a table and chairs and that, so that we had our own eating area. I mean, sometimes we all used to eat together, but most times we'd eat on our own table. And Mother used to be able to cook as well. Aunt Bet used to let her use the stove to cook. So.
And you had 6 weeks to pack up in total.
Yeah.
Was the move to Beeson quite quick? Did it take quite a long time to set up that arrangement?
It took a bit of time because my father was a builder, and they had to get all the building material out from up at the yard, and he took it all down Beeson, and he carried on the building work at Beeson's because he used to do quite a bit of work down that way. Father was allowed enough petrol to be able to go to Paignton to discuss work with my grandfather and, you know, what there was. I was looking at the petrol form there today that I used to have to fill in to get petrol.
And your friends in the village at that stage, did you know where they were going, whether you might see them again?
I can't say I know where any of them went. Really, you know, it was so quick. You know, people went and you didn't realise it. I was one of the last to go from here. Or we were one of the last to go from here, because we only moved to Beeson, whereas some of them moved to Totnes. Totnes and Paignton, places like that. One farm sold up because they bought a market garden place up at Torquay. Another farm managed to get a farm over the back of Newton Abbot there. Forgotten what it's called now. Anyway, up Newton Abbot way, so they managed to get a farm and take their animals. And the other farm, because we had 3 farms in the village here, and the other farm, I think they managed to get their animals in with a relative of theirs. So, and there was only one of them came back. 2 different people came back in the other 2 farms.
So at the stage when you were leaving, did you think you would be coming back to this house, or were you not sure what you were doing?
Well, they told us we would be. They said that you could leave things in the house. It wouldn't be touched because they weren't using the houses at all for billeting. Mother put a lot of brass stuff that my grandfather had brought back from India in the First World War, and my grandmother didn't like it very much, and she passed it on to my mother, and she put that all up in the loft with tilly lamps and that we, because obviously we had no electricity in those days, put it up in the loft. When we come back, there wasn't a thing there, all gone.
How did the village feel at that time? Was it an eerie place?
Well, there were some Americans here taking photographs of the village and that, and they said to me, they said, well, will you pretend to walk in, because I was walking up and down the village, I was, fed up with myself, sort of thing. So they said, will you walk into one of the houses and pretend that that's your home, sort of thing. So they had me walking into the house, and they said, well, we're doing all this to send back home to show people what you're doing for us. I mean, I was in my element on the farm, because that's what I always wanted to do. And I mean, there was quite a few people my age, Beeson and B-Sons, you see, and we all used to congregate together, and we used to meet on the green down at Beeson in the evenings after school, and the Americans would come down from Whittycombe Woods, and they were stationed up there, and they used to come down from there and bring us down sweets and comics and that, because they knew we didn't get many sweets. So. And a lot of them said, it was nice to come down because we reminded them of they had brothers and sisters our age, sort of thing, back home, and they said it was nice to come down to talk to us. I had the time of my life on the farm. Of the first 2 months I was down there, I was supposed to be going to Dartmouth Grammar School, and obviously I couldn't get there. And I couldn't even go to Kingsbridge Grammar School because there was no buses to go there. So I was they didn't know what to do with me. So I was helping my cousin on the farm, and I used to do the milk ground down B-Sands with a pony and trap. And because his sister used to do it with this pony and trap, and she got married and moved away. So Dick said, well, you can do it. He said, Billy knows the round, that's the pony. And he did, because he'd stop at the first place you had to stop at, whether you wanted him to or not. And then, he'd say, right, walk on, Billy, and he'd walk on to the next. And he used to walk on to each house. And he was really good. And I used to get the old milk out the churn in the measure and put it in people's jugs. No bottles in those days, thank goodness. They used to always have their guns with them when, not always, but some of them used to carry their guns with them when they were walking around. I mean, they were allowed to do it. And this one brought his gun down to show the boys how his gun worked. So anyway, he was showing the boys how it worked. Well, it didn't interest me because I knew how a gun worked. I mean, my father had guns and that. So anyway, myself and another person decided we'd go for a ride out to Basin Pool and turn around and ride and back again. And by this time he'd put his helmet on the corner of the road. Anyway, he went back up the road to show the boys how to fire this gun. And I came round on my bike round the corner just as he fired. And I sort of heard a went on, came back again. And by that time, the soldier that had done it, he was absolutely petrified. My sister saw it happening, and she was just coming out of a friend's house. She was older than me. She'd just come out of a friend's house, saw it happen, and the rest of the kids said, "You ought to have been here." She nearly throttled him. So he was more frightened than me.
Around 11 months later, in the autumn of 1944, Pam and her family were given the all clear to return to the cottage.
I think we were one of the first back. Might have been a couple more people came back, sort of thing, but again, you know, being so close, we got back quick.
And you said the garden was overgrown. There were weeds growing outside.
Yeah.
What was the house like? Was there any damage? Any evidence of?
No, actually, the house was quite good. There's a couple of cracked panes of glass, but other than that, I mean, it was all right. There wasn't many people got much help. The farmers did get some compensation on, I think it was more on the ground than anything. It was a hard time for parents. I mean, probably we didn't realise it. We thought it was great, you know, moving around and doing all these things, but when you think about it, if it happened now, when you're older, you realise just how it must have affected them. As a kid, I was looking forward to it because I was going down to the farm. But I mean, parents, obviously, my mother was upset, but...
Not all of the 3,000 people evacuated from Slapton and the surrounding villages returned home. Some found their buildings damaged and others had already settled elsewhere. Slapton Lay's waterways were choked with weeds and the land overrun with rabbits. Apart from the occasional discovery of shells and military hardware, it's hard to believe that this stretch of South Ham's countryside once fell silent 80 years ago. If you're visiting the area, we'd recommend starting at the Tank Memorial in Tor Cross. Nearby is the Billy Can Cafe, who were kind enough to lend us their Jeep. Dartmouth Museum and the Cook with You Museum in Kingsbridge contain lots of information about the evacuation and military exercises, including many of the images you've seen in our film. If you're looking for places to stay, Toad Hall Cottages have a huge range of holiday cottages in villages throughout the evacuation area.